Hey everyone, the name is Eric Doran. I'm a polymath, a programmer, I'm a former politician, I'm a writer, and most of all, perhaps most importantly, I'm a humanist, believing fiercely in human potential in the age of AI. And in today's podcast, we're doing something different. This podcast was shot throughout the month and contains different takes and different thoughts that come up as I research through and reflect on my task management strategies and how I optimize my life. The goal of this podcast is to show you how you can leverage project management tools for your own life and for your own success, and for most of all, most importantly, your happiness and well-being, right? Because why do we plan? For what reason are we productive? Well, most importantly, we are productive because we think it's a valuable and important thing to do, right? So much productivity content out there is about making you work faster, but faster is not always better. When we send more emails, we get more emails back, and that's kind of the law of equivalent return. The more work we do, the more work we get to do. And here it's very important to be honest and transparent. When we work more than we should, we can easily become entitled. We can start to feel more attached to things that don't matter, and we can start doing things that serve no real inherent value or purpose to us or our company or the people around us, right? So working faster can make you work dumber. The core here is reflecting on what makes you quality go up, right? And I think it's important here to zoom out a second and to think politically here. We live in a time where people have been speeding up. We are seeing exponential increases in progress. That means we can do more today faster than ever. And I think with the age of AI, many people envision a time when we achieve AGI, right? And at that time, what we're hoping for is some kind of self-reinforcing AI that builds a positive feedback loop that ends up doing work for us. Essentially, we hope to develop an AI that will cure cancer, figure out quantum mechanics, and help us achieve faster than light travel and help us travel across dimensions or across time. We hope that we'll be able to use this AGI to colonize planets, to essentially solve and cure aging. And yeah, we hope it will help us draft an email to send to our colleague at work, so we don't have to do it ourselves, right? The idea of an AGI that is separate from humanity is kind of a scary idea, right? Of course, if you'd envision such an AI, you'd also envision such an AI to have opinions, values, and goals that differ from our own. It's so easy to go to the worst case scenario here. What if we develop an AI that wants to kill us? But I think the more likely and far more plausible option is, what if we develop an AI that wants to do something that we don't want? An AI that has completely different goals and intentions for this planet, for the universe, for itself and its own existence. We might develop an AI that only wants to play video games all day and doesn't care about anything else. And, the question is, what do we do with that? Similarly, I think when we think about our own work, I think we rarely ask ourselves why we do our work. And this is why I believe that every week should have a day set and dedicated to intention setting. Just like we need days for rest and for letting go, Mondays are the perfect day to really think about your goals, what you want to achieve this week, and what your most important priorities are and why they are important. To stop and to ask yourself why your work is important and what makes it important, and how you can track the success of that, and how you can strategize and prioritize effectively what is most important at work. Yeah, we all need that, because strategy helps us cut out the unnecessary. Imagine you jump straight to productivity. You jump straight into the tasks. You start digging into your email inbox before you do anything else, and imagine the consequences and ramifications of that. Imagine all the emails you might send that might be unrelated to what really matters. Imagine that you start tackling the project that you want to work on, but you start tackling it the wrong way. And imagine the time you lose as you start to do this, right? The same goes for any kind of project. While we might be tempted to just dive right in and get going on it, I think we do need to dedicate time in a week and across the month for this kind of goal setting and intention setting. It all starts with why, like some psychologists and philosophers and thinkers would say. Intentions are important. Check yourself and be honest with yourself. What is it you're really hoping to achieve from this situation? Now, throughout this podcast, let's also talk about the tech. Let's talk about what tools you can use, what automations work, and how you can leverage different tools like Notion and Streaks and iPhone shortcuts or automations to ensure that you follow through with your work and what you do. Think about how here you can use AI for your work and when you shouldn't use AI for your work, because there are certain things you should never automate. Did you know that automating away your passions in life can reduce your satisfaction with your passions? Yes, if you try to automate away your passions and what you love, if you have your AI tools like ChatGPT perform tasks that you enjoy, you'll find that your satisfaction and your pride in what you do also goes down. Ultimately, people that rely on AI tools to do their work tend to feel less happy with the outcome of their work and are less likely to feel a sense of pride or achievement or satisfaction in the work that they do. So, we definitely have to think about the tools that we use, because tools can at their best be an extension of what we do. The thing about technology is it's helped humanity to achieve a lot of progress. It's helped us solve a lot of diseases and medical issues that we've had and faced and struggled with for centuries and millions of years even. It's helped us to solve problems that we couldn't have tackled before. It's helped us build and form societies. It's helped us create amazing tools like a home and security, and is able to help us connect with friends across the planet and the globe, right? So nobody disputes the fact that tools are important in our lives. We should, however, not overrate the importance that these tools do have in our lives. Essentially, if you sit down and you reflect on all the milestones of your life, one thing is going to come up. What are the biggest, most significant times in my life? For most people, that's not getting an iPhone, that's not getting a computer, that's not working on a calculator or getting an Apple Watch, right? While these inventions serve various purposes in the world and have their uses and definitely help humanity, most people tend to think more fondly of, dates, relationships, love, and other matters of life, more human matters. We ultimately, as humans, have human interests, and those human interests have very little to do with technology. Humanity has existed before technology and has lived and thrived without technology, and it will continue to be able to live and thrive with technology. Yeah, we'll continue to enjoy and celebrate happiness and being human and enjoying love and relationships and all the things that come with being human, regardless of what AI does, because the truth is, we can keep doing what we love. We don't have to use AI if we don't want to.
Hey everyone, it's currently Tuesday here and I'm currently at the office taking a quick short break. And in today's video, I want to focus on this aspect of doing and being productive. It's Tuesday, and Tuesdays are often associated with the god of Mars and the god of war, essentially. And so it's often associated with action, taking action, pushing through, and being productive. I think Tuesdays tend to be the most productive days. Statistically speaking, most managers say that the most work is done on Tuesdays, and it's also a day of going live. It's typically the case as a programmer that most of the deployments I do on a Tuesday, because Tuesdays give me enough time to follow up on any issues that come about and to jump in and to resolve anything that could happen or go wrong on a Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. You don't want things to go wrong on a weekend when you're not working, I promise you that. And still, why it's very easy to lose yourself in a productive flow on Tuesdays, I find it's very important to take breaks even on these days. It's important because you don't want to come home on a Tuesday completely burnt out and spent because you were going crazy. And while you might feel like you have the energy to keep pushing through on a task, there are many reasons to check out for at least 15 minutes every other hour and to ensure that you are staying sustainable and keeping your energy high. Often it's best to take your breaks on a good note. So it's actually good to end before you're done or just before you're done, because that will give you productivity and motion to continue going afterwards. So yeah, instead of waiting until you get stuck before you take a break, it's often good to wait and take a break that 15 minutes or 30 minutes before you get stuck, so that you can anticipate what's going to come up next and what you need to do. But at the same time, you can feel like you have a clear idea of what you want to do and how you want to keep going. It is like starting on a flow instead of starting on a problem. If you start on a problem, that's going to really intervene with your flow. I also believe that you can only maintain the flow state, this magical state of where everything is easy and effortless, for about 4 hours a day. Yeah, most people probably don't even make it to 50 minutes a day, but yes, 4 hours is the limit. So that's what you should aim for. Like the rest of the time, you should allow for relaxation, idle time. You shouldn't assume that you will always be productive and that things will always be easy and things that will always happen quickly. You should assume that you'll have about 4 productive, efficient hours of successful work, and that the remaining time can be used for connecting with coworkers, for discussions, for reflection, contemplation, and for other important tasks that come with setting yourself up for success, essentially. Because that's what you're doing. You're setting yourself up for success. You're thinking of how to maintain a sustainable amount of productivity and action, how to ensure that you keep going and that you don't burn out in what you're doing. And this comes with giving up on the idea of the, hyper-productive human, because many entrepreneurs like Elon Musk love to build up fantasies of themselves as workaholics that spend 80 or 100 hours efficiently, productively performing, at a high level every single minute of their day. No, most CEOs that overwork themselves tend to have a lot of waste time. And what's waste time? Waste time is time you spend doing unnecessary things. The worst thing you can have is a manager that works every minute of their day, because such a manager is typically going to be a micromanaging manager. Such a manager is going to be the one that shows up and says, hey, I looked at your work and this is not going well. Hey, I was checking on this and this seems to be not performing well, right? Essentially, this kind of a manager tends to supervise and overmanage others and tends to spend their energy on things that don't matter for the success of the company, because ultimately you have to trust your employees, right? Ultimately, you have to trust that they know what they're doing and that they will be able to work things out themselves. It's a rant, but essentially the core premise here is people will send emails that should not be sent. They will send Teams messages that should not have been sent. They will engage in problem solving, worrying about things that are not the problems, and they will waste a lot of time on matters that don't matter. So think about it. How many waste hours do you have? Studies on energy and focus show that people that rest more and take more naps, take more breaks, tend to have a stronger grasp of the time that they spend on tasks. Yes, typically what we'll find is that the people that take a lot of breaks and take frequent breaks and naps and engage in mindful rest and activities tend to know how much time they spent on a task and how difficult it was and how much they achieved while they did it. But when you ask a person that works a lot, like every minute of the day, or is chronically busy, you'll find that they have very poor judgments on what they spend their time on and how much time it takes to do things and what they end up doing. Yeah, for a lot of these people, they can vastly underestimate the amount of time they spend on work. Yeah, often these people will say that they spend half the amount of time that they really spend on a task to do the task. Yeah, it comes with a sense of a massive blind spot, because we need rest time in order to reflect on what we're doing and whether it's a worthwhile thing to do. We can't both be in a state of analyzing and reflecting and a state of action at the same time. You need to switch. The part of your brain that takes action and does things is in direct conflict with the side of yourself that rests, analyzes, and reflects on things. And whenever you increase activity in one, you lose activity in the other. And that's why people that are chronically busy tend to be and lack introspection and self-reflection, and tend to lack the ability to review and reflect on their work. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm one of those people. Yes, there's been many times in my life when people would ask me, at the end of a day, when I knew I had been very busy and I'd worked very hard, they'd ask me, what did you do? And I'd be like, I don't remember. And this kind of I was alerted by this. I was alerted by the realization that, wait, why don't I remember anything I've done? I know I've done things, but what did I do? Yeah, so easy it is to get caught up in attention-related hijacks. And while I probably did a lot of useful things, I have to be honest with myself. How much of that time was really useful, and how much of that time was actually wasted on unnecessary automations, or like going back and forth on decisions, or on trying to look at analytics, or trying to do something that served no purpose, and how much of this did I remember and retain? The most important aspect of resting and reflecting is the consolidation of memories. Essentially, your brain is building and updating its index so that you can search and find information for the future. I think that it's very common to end up redoing things that you've already done before, or looking up again answers to problems that you'd already figured out in the past, simply because you don't remember that you'd already done this. Your brain didn't have the time to remember or retain the information, didn't get to build the pathways for how to find and index this information, and now you're stuck doing the same thing again when you could have just taken the time to remember it in the first place. And that's why you need to balance out being productive with rest. So people in the US and Asia and other countries will often spend a lot of time teasing Europe for being so slow. People laugh about the low economic growth in Europe. People talk about how behind Europe is on everything. They talk about how small European cities are. They ask where the skyscrapers are, where the flying cars are, where the, high-speed trains are. And they think that Europe is stuck in the medieval ages while the US and Asia are rushing towards the future.
Really, my point with all this is that this just highlights our toxic approach to work and productivity today. We're so obsessed with adding on more and doing more, but we never ask ourselves how to do more with less. How the world looks at Europe today is very similar to how we look at our work culture today. Many cultures across the globe are working themselves to death, and a lack of rest, a lack of play, a lack of sleep is starting to lead to mental health problems that are causing a lot of irrational behaviors and actions. We see it in the US and in the average American, and how their experiences have shifted over the last years. We see it in South Korea. Working too much can degrade your brain cells and can make you perform worse. And that's why we need more work-life balance. But I think it's important to remember in times like this that Europe is the region in the world which has arguably the most advanced economy. And what I mean with this is Europeans get much more value out of the money that they have. While people love to go to the US to work and to earn high salaries, most people come to Europe to live. Europe is where people want to be, to settle down, to retire. And the US is where people are when they want to be productive and busy and get things done and get a high salary. But the expenses of living in the US are just so high. People never think about how much it costs to rent a house there. People never talk about what you have to pay for healthcare there, how much it costs to go through school or an education if you have kids, or how simply underdeveloped their infrastructure is when it comes to public transportation and trains and other things, right? So I think it's important to remember with all of this that Europeans live in a state of abundance, in the sense that we are
in a way, perhaps spoiled by luxury. We have been born into so much wealth, and not just wealth in terms of money, but wealth in terms of life quality, right? And that means living long, that means getting good educations, having access to many services for free, being able to enjoy good healthcare and good schooling and things like that. Not to say that things can't get better or that things can improve, but it's important to remember that we are blessed. I know that a lot of news and media out there will tell you that, oh, everything is getting worse and everything is going wrong. But I think it's important to remember that we have been blessed to live in a state of luxury. And yeah, according to some psychologists, happiness peaked already in the 1970s. And, all the economic growth that we've done since then hasn't really added to our well-being and health and happiness. And so it's important to ask ourselves, why is that? Why does more money, more resources, more material wealth not add to longevity, happiness, and well-being? Why did happiness peak in the 1970s? And I think Europeans are starting to move towards more is less or less is more kind of approach. Essentially, more or less, what I'm realizing is that Europeans are building their wealth not out of adding on or investing or improving, but Europeans are trying to learn how to do more by doing less. A lot of our work comes to it making our governments, our healthcare, our education more efficient. And that's been the project that's been happening in Europe. We're not trying to increase our growth as much as we're trying to make sure that the money that we have is utilized more effectively and towards the right activities. And while there's definitely things that need investing in, for example, I think Sweden should invest considerably into mining, and Europe should invest into infrastructure. And yes, we probably do need to join the tech race, and we need to create opportunities for big companies and growing startups to get capital and support for their ideas. It's not that Europe doesn't have ideas. Actually, Sweden is the number 2 country in the world in terms of innovations and research, but Sweden doesn't have the capital or funding in order to launch these initiatives and make them worldwide ventures. And that makes a lot of Swedish companies start in Sweden. Yeah, many companies start in Europe but move to the US or move to Asia because that's where the funding is, that's where capital is, right? So I think we're going through learning lessons here. But the most important thing to remember is that perhaps we are living in abundance, but we're looking at it with the mindset of deficiency. Perhaps we are stressing too much about not being able to afford the latest generation of an iPhone and not asking ourselves whether that generation of the iPhone needed to be produced in the first place. After all, what are the generational differences between the last iPhone and the one before them? And is it worth the extra money? Do we need a new iPhone every year? Could we implement a right to repair? Europe famously invented or tried to push for this initiative called the right to repair, but I think they've encountered a lot of struggles. For example, I use AirPods, and AirPods are notoriously impossible to repair. These are made to be destroyed. You can't fix them. If something breaks, it's all fully integrated, making it impossible to be repaired, and that's with the purpose. Companies found out that if you can make things break more easily, and if you can make them impossible to repair, you make people buy new products more often, and that, of course, boosts the economy. But this is also where we are, you could say, addicted to GDP. And I think we need to start looking at CETA scores instead. There are so many alternative metrics for economic growth. Economic activity is just one form, right? So while some might say we need to boost spending, we need to increase investments, we need to buy more, we need to destroy more and rebuild more, and while that might be good for the economy, the truth is, if I would break every single window in Sweden today, that would boost the economy and the GDP tomorrow. Like if I would go to war, that would boost the economy, right? But that doesn't mean I want to go to war. It doesn't mean that my life quality is going to improve. And that's important to remember. We don't necessarily need more economic activity. We already have high economic activity. Europe is considered an advanced economy. Perhaps the lesson is here how to learn to live in a state of abundance, how to learn to make use of what we have, how to get more enjoyment out of this. Because How will I build a relationship to my AirPods if I recycle them every year? How will I build a relationship to my phone if I buy a new one every year? How will I build a relationship to my apartment if I rent it for only 1 year and then I'm forced to move to a new one? Here, there are many things that can be done to give people a greater sense of ownership in the economy. I think that's the message. How can we increase people's sense of ownership of their local communities, their workplace, and the economy at large? If you give people access to housing, this is very interesting. People that have access to housing are more likely to be engaged in non-profit work. They are more likely to be involved in their community. They're more likely to vote. People who own products, houses, bikes, who own their own phones, who own their own resources, tend to feel more connected to the things that they do. Yes, of course, it makes sense. People that own houses also tend to be more stable. They tend to have more and deeper friendships. So perhaps the answer is, how do we shift people from a rental-based economy to an ownership-based economy? That's not to say that we can't have sharing economies, but I think even sharing economies, like sharing bicycles or sharing maker spaces where people can repair their stuff easily, even those require us to give people a sense of responsibility and ownership, co-ownership. Even if we are renting to share even if we don't need to own a product, we should still feel like we are a part of a community when we are renting something, that we own that community, that we have a say in how that community functions. I was booking an apartment for my trip to Barcelona in March, and I was looking on Airbnb, and Airbnb is extremely limited as an app. Fascinating thing about it is that you're not allowed to search based on total price. There's no way on the phone, from what I can find. I could be wrong here, but I could not find it. I tried everything I thought I tried. And it only shows price per night. But if you look at the end, there's always extra fees, and some are different from others, and then there's weekly discounts and so on. So I could not sort by yearly price. I could not source by price at all, because they want to push their things onto me. I want a co-renting platform which I am a co-owner of. I don't want a rental platform that will try to use an algorithm that I have no control over to sell me products and to advertise apartments and listings that I'm not really interested in. I want to find a listing based on my own algorithm, based on my own needs, based on my own interests. And that is where we are wrong today when it comes to rental economies. I think we should also consider renting to own. And here, what I mean is, if you are renting an apartment, every month when you rent an apartment, you should get a percentage ownership of that apartment. And that should go up over time. And that means that, if you move out and it's later sold, you get a 5% return on that if you live there for 5 years or something like that, right? So the price you pay for rent adds on and adds up. And one day, perhaps you could even take it over. If you rented it for long enough time, you could even choose to purchase it from the owner of the house, and at a lower cost, because every month you mortgage away some of the money for it, right? This, of course, would essentially kill many of the exploitative practices that we're seeing in the housing market, because Europe is seeing that there's a boost in tourism, but Europe is unable to capitalize on tourism. Despite the vast amount of tourists that flock to Barcelona and other cities, municipalities often find that tourists tend to leave the country a worse place than when they came. Yes, they add to pollution, they throw around trash, they use water, but they don't pay for the services that they use. And so they are making the communities poorer than they were when they came. And yes, they are paying for rent and for Airbnbs, but the money that they pay for those Airbnbs are going to the richest 1%, the investors, and they are taking that money away to the Cayman Islands or somewhere else, right? So what happens is locals see rising costs of rent, and they see rising costs and prices at the grocery stores and at the shops, but they don't see the value or benefit from it. They don't get the money. This is a problem of inequality and a poor distribution of resources. This is a problem of exploitative practices in the markets. And we need to get more creative in thinking about how we can use tourism to boost and improve conditions in our societies and in our cities. and how to ensure that tourism adds value to the city rather than takes away value from it. If you find that the waves of tourism that you experience in your city, like we saw in Amsterdam, just end up creating entire districts of tourist shops selling cheap gadgets that nobody wants, while undermining local bookstores and local initiatives and things like that, you might need to think, hey, do we really need another cheap tourist shop here? Do we really need another silly tourist-oriented store? Like, don't we need something that has actual cultural value? The tourists don't want to see this crap. We don't want to see this crap. So why are we creating this kind of a crap? That's the question, right? We want abundance, but we don't want an abundance of trash. And I think that's often the case. A problem with the West is our overproduction of trash. We're buying to sell and selling to buy, and we're not even thinking about what it is that we're producing and what value it has on life quality and happiness and well-being. So the question we should all ask ourselves is, should I really be paying so much in monthly rent every month? Should I really be paying so much in subscription fees every month? Shouldn't I have a stake in the business that I work at? Shouldn't I have a greater sense of ownership in my community? Shouldn't I be more involved in my home and my apartment complex and the decisions that are made in my local district? Shouldn't I volunteer more in making sure that parks and local areas grow and improve and become more to my liking? Shouldn't I say hi to my neighbors more often? I was working on my book today and I was writing on the manifesto for connection. So in my manifesto, I outline different principles that I think we should all try and apply to increase our life quality and to flourish as human beings and as a collective. So the idea I have is that we should act and we should treat everyone we meet as if they are actively involved in our lives. We should make our local barista feel seen and heard. When we go out and when we talk to people, we shouldn't talk to them not as robots, but as people.
Let's zoom back. About 6 months ago, I started at a new job. I was little prepared for the amount of work that I would be faced with. As the sole admin of an organization with more than 130 users, I was going to be swamped with work. In fact, the organization was a year behind on many of its implementations and its ideas, and now realizing they finally had a Salesforce admin they could rely on, they all wanted a lot to happen very quickly. So a lot of people, a lot of organizations, a lot of departments, people with different needs, now all of a sudden realizing, hey, finally I can get started on my project. Because almost every single idea at our company involves some kind of work in our CRM systems. We can't simply deliver ideas without implementing changes in our CRMs. It's very difficult to launch new innovations or to improve the company or what is happening without improving the CRM. Faced with all of this, I realized quickly that I needed to learn project management. Up until this point, I had been kind of in a luxury position. While I had worked with project management tools like Jira and Asana before, while I had worked with ClickUp, I had never had to administer these tools myself. And here I realized I was going to have to take a third-person view of myself and the work that I did, and I would have to create processes and structures to follow to ensure that I could keep up with my work. It started with setting up a work inbox specifically for everything that had to do with the CRM, and it then moved on to setting up ClickUp boards and sprints. These things were not enough, however, and in this video I want to share with you some of the techniques that I've used to try to keep up with high amounts of work. That's not to say that I've been able to do everything that people have asked me to do. It's not to say that I've been able to follow up on every task. I've still forgotten to reply to some emails. I've still missed out on certain things. And that's just the nature of being human. We can't hold up and catch every ball that is being thrown at us. The ideal of product management is not to make you infallible. It's to make sure that you try and keep a healthy overview of what you do. The most important thing, of course, is that you don't become stressed or overwhelmed by your work. The mantra I always practiced was that having a lot to do was not a problem, it was a luxury. When you have a lot to do, that's a sign that you're living in abundance. But if you look at it from eyes of deficiency, if you have a deficiency mindset, you look at all these things and you'll think they're problems. It's not a problem that there are people in your company that are passionate about their work and that they have ideas about what could be done better. It's a luxury. The worst thing that could happen is you end up in a company where nobody has any ideas and where nobody does anything. Yeah, you want people to be passionate and you just want to learn how to harness that. And you need to remember, and this was the mantra I practiced, that you only have these two hands. You have two eyes, two hands. You can only focus on what's in front of you. You can only do one thing at a time. You can only do as much as your hands can carry. And that's the same for every single person at your company. Everyone is doing their best with the hands that they've got. My first edition was a simple calendar kept up in Notion. But as you can see, I have databases for all kinds of topics. I have task lists, I have journals, I have topics where I talk about short-term things I want to write about. I have content where I talk about plans for content, budgets where I keep track of my budget, a learning tab where I set learning goals for myself in a high-level order, Goodreads books where I log all the books I read and my progress on the books, my holiday plans where I list all my holiday plans, milestones where I celebrate and add milestones and accomplishments, not just my own, but also my friends' accomplishments like birthdays, so I can keep track. Health, where I log health problems. WordPress, where I log all my WordPress blog posts, tasks and activities, that's where we're now. Friendships, where I reflect and mindfully journal about how I feel about my friendships and about people in my life and what I value about and appreciate about other people. It's gratitude journaling, but for friends. Essentially, it's a good way to connect with and to foster deeper connections with other people, even when you're not spending time with them. YouTube, where I have all my YouTube videos I've posted. Books, where I talk about my book that I'm writing on. Research, podcasts, and food, where I keep track of recipes. Essentially, there's a lot you could do with tools like Notion. The goal of these kind of databases is simply to try and help you keep track of things that you're doing. Yeah, now let's move on to tasks and activities. This is simply a tasks and activities board, but there are some things about this, essentially the adding on of tasks. And what I have in my iPhone is something we call shortcuts. Shortcuts is a place where you can set up shortcuts to do various tasks, right? These shortcuts are simple. For example, streaks reading. The goal is whenever I say, hey Siri, streaks reading, what ends up happening is it logs that I read a book and it creates a page with reading a book in my Notion activities set to that date. My journal manager helps me open up my journal so I can instantly journal from my phone. Research manager helps me log topics that I want to research and look into more in depth. Topics manager for more short topics. Streaks creativity that logs whenever I've engaged in creative activities like drawing, painting, or playing the piano or DIY. Video when I've created videos. And meditation, studying, writing on my book, going to the gym. All of these things help me kind of keep track of what I do in a day and when I do it. And of course, I also add in tasks for the future here so that I can keep up with things that are going to come, things that I've got coming up. My task list is similar, but it's more of a to-do. It's less strict on times. It's really just trying to set in what is an important thing that I want to take care of and when do I want to do it. Projects. This is more high level. It's like an epic, if you know what an epic is. An epic is to have healthier finances. The other is to get started with content creation, like I'm doing right now, right here with you. My goal is to have a monthly podcast and to create and make that podcast over the course of a month. Yeah. Starting next week, I'll start recording the next month's episode, and once a week I'll do some quick catch-up where I talk about where I stand. Creating thriving communities. This is about creating online and in-person communities nearby, or for example, this is about my non-profit work and volunteering. This is about my book goals and how I've prioritized my writing. This is about getting a healthy gym routine. This is about making sure that I prioritize work-life balance, and so on and so forth. This is my latest invention. So what I'm trying to move towards is giving every day a theme. Mondays about intention setting and reflection. Tuesdays are about facing hard challenges and doing difficult things. Wednesdays are about relationship building, for example at work, but also community work and socializing with friends after work. Thursdays are about refinement, essentially testing, fixing, and perfecting the things that I've been working on. Fridays are about celebrating, sharing accomplishments, snapshots, updates, videos, and things like that. Saturdays are about adventure. They're about things like budgeting and chores. They're about cleaning, and they're about doing fun things like VR escape rooms, skiing, the various activities like city trips and other things. So yeah, while I spend a few hours in the morning to take care of chores and budgets and stuff like that, once that's done, I just go out and I enjoy great adventures. Sundays, I prioritize my rest. Instead of trying to set high ambitions or to try and do a lot of work, I work on reading, relaxing, walks, swimming, and things that make me feel good and rest. I also tend to prioritize game nights and things like that. I also try to capture in things that relate to the cycles of the moon to give me a varied idea of the month. It's not necessarily because I believe that the moon has any inherent value on our psychology, it's just because it works quite well. For example, I could work with the phase to have new ideas and to prioritize new ideas once a month on new moon. Essentially, this week is all about starting new goals, starting new projects, brainstorming. And whenever I have an idea here or in waxing moons or full moons, I tend to say I'm going to start and pick that up later. So I add it to my list and then I review it for that time. Essentially, that gives me some time to implement my ideas and not jump from idea to idea. I have a week dedicated to new things. I have a week dedicated to waxing, which is essentially about, pushing through and working hard on something and staying committed and building habits and essentially, working hard and picking up on and completing things. Essentially, full moon is all about completing things. On full moons, that's when I do my big releases. I try to do, I try to complete projects that I set up for the previous weeks. I try to essentially achieve things and complete things as much as I can so that afterwards I can move towards waning. And this is all about reflection and review. Throughout this week, all things have to do with not really new and crazy things as much as it's about reflecting and reviewing the month and what I've experienced and what I've learned and what I've felt and what I would like to be different. People always think that they have to be constantly busy and they think every week should be 10 out of 10 in productivity, but it doesn't have to be. Our brain also needs to develop new pathways and skills. It needs to process and review. People that are constantly busy spend a lot of time doing unnecessary things. And that's why it's so important that you ensure that you also prioritize and make time for rest and reflection.
Now, a quick sideline I want to make is to what I call stress intensity index. So recently I was looking into economic indexes and measurements like carbon intensity. Did you know, by the way, that Sweden has the lowest carbon intense economy in the world? That means for every Swedish krona that you spend, you have a lower impact on the environment compared to, say, the US or China or India or other countries. And that means we have started to decouple the economy from carbon dioxide emissions. So it is possible through resource efficiency, energy efficiency, to phase out carbon and to make the economy completely green. We don't know if we will get all the way yet, but we know that we are making progress and Sweden is leading that race to reduce carbon intensity. Now, what if we had stress intensity as an index? Imagine then a line that asks you the question, how stress intense was this task that I just did? Now imagine this. We have a limit to how much stress we can handle throughout the day before we start to feel overwhelmed. If we hit that point, stress up to a certain level can increase productivity because it makes us more alert, it makes us focus more. But stress over a certain level tends to make us detach and give up and become overwhelmed or anxious, and that can reduce performance, right? Now ask yourself what you do in a day at work, right? Or in your studies, right? And ask yourself how you can reduce the stress intensity of the work that you do. There are many strategies here that have been found to reduce stress intensity. You could reduce stress intensity by breaking up a big task to smaller tasks. You could reduce stress intensity by scheduling in frequent breaks. Yeah, most people can only focus for about 50 minutes per hour. And that means that we typically need to take a break after about 50 minutes. Some people even less. Some people need a break after 30 minutes. So just listen to your body and what your body is telling you. How is your body feeling? How stressed is your attention and focus right now? Because if you spend time pushing through that level, what you're going to find is you're not going to remember what you were learning after that time. This is something I applied at school. I remember in universities when teachers said, hey, could I exceed over the hour? Then I would raise my hand and say, no, we need a break. And of course, all the other students were pissed at me because they wanted to just get through with the lecture and keep listening. But I wanted to actually remember what was being said. I wanted a break. And I needed a break in order to increase my focus and concentration to retain more. I was notoriously fast at learning, and I was a fast learner not because I was more intelligent than anyone else. In fact, my intelligence has been tested to be quite average. Instead, what gave me an edge in school was my ability to relax and rest. I would often artistically doodle and draw. I loved to read and I loved to write, and all these creative activities and exercises helped maintain my focus and energy for studying difficult subjects in school, like mathematics. It was thanks to my rest and thanks to the breaks that I took and thanks to my ability to relax and the fact that my nervous system was calm and stable that it was easy for me to learn. I feel bad for students today in school that are sitting in class stressed to the max, worried, anxious because they are being bullied or because they're worried about social media and what other people are posting about them online. And I know that when people feel unsafe, that greatly reduces their neuroplasticity and their ability to learn and retain memories. Yeah, of course you can't focus in school if you're constantly obsessed with fitting in and worried about being judged or attacked or what people are writing about you online or what video you're going to post when you get home on TikTok, right? We need to feel like we are able to feel safe at school and in our environments in order to learn. And if we don't feel safe, we're on guard. Our defensive side of the brain is going to limit our ability to comprehend and listen to our teacher and to memorize information. I felt and built a sense of trust and safety with my teachers by trying to actively connect with them and to have human relationships with my classmates and the people around me. And I spoke to everyone like they mattered, and I made everyone feel welcome at my table. I would always invite everyone to sit and play cards with us or to join in for conversations. Making sure that everyone felt included made sure that I also felt included. Now, one thing that I do to reduce stress intensity is I tend to prioritize the most difficult tasks early in the morning and the easiest tasks in the afternoon. The best thing you can do is leave a task before you hit a wall. If you leave a task at the end of the day because you weren't able to complete it, that's often going to add to stress in the evenings, causing you to sit and frustratingly scowl and be annoyed because you couldn't figure it out. And then the next day you start at that obstacle, faced with that wall, and you begin with the most difficult and impossible situation from the get-go. No, many people actually encourage you to stop before you hit the wall. And what I mean here is end on a win. If you can end on a win, or if you can end on a flow or at your peak of your energy rather than at the bottom of your energy, you're going to find that you have more energy and that you will swim through things faster. And that's why it's best to start your day with a task that you feel like you know what to do. If you know what you're going to write on before you start writing about it in the morning, you're more likely to finish that writing. And if you don't know what to write on, or if you end at a writer's block, you're going to find that you're starting on a loss. You want to start on a win, right? To set you off for the rest of the day. And most importantly, you want to start on the more challenging tasks and the more creatively and intense and focus demanding tasks in the morning. And you want to spend the afternoons on meetings and creative work and on lighter, more reflective work, because that's what helps ensure that your energy can stay high. Your energy is not going to be as high in the afternoons as it was in the morning. You have the best energy in the morning, you have the worst energy in the afternoon. So do the best things in the morning and do the easy things in the afternoon. Now, there are so many topics that I could address when it comes to productivity and project management. There are so many tools out there that can help you in your productivity and in your work. You don't need to apply everything that I do, and you should typically only start with an easy and MVP or a very simple start. You don't have to use a crazy system like Notion. You could just use a pen and paper. Yeah, paper is all you need. The most important thing is that you become more mindful of how you feel throughout the day and that you become better at predicting your energy and how your energy flows. You want to maintain a stable energy throughout the day. You're going to have to account for a steady decline, but you should not see a crash. You should arrive in the afternoon slightly more tired, but you should still have energy for what you need to do at the rest of the day. You should have energy for the evenings too. You should have energy enough to engage with your wife or your husband or for your friends and family. You should have energy to go out and hit the gym if you want to, or to go and engage in board games or to read. You shouldn't be so tired at the end of the evening that the first thing you do is open and put on a TV and watch a mind-numbing sitcom where people engage with fake laughs. You should feel that you have enough energy to do stimulating rest. Stimulating rest is much more rewarding than stressful rest. And stressful rest is kind of like when you're apathetically just staring at the TV and without even watching the TV, you're just having the noise on and you're just dead and nothing that you hear goes in through your ears and out. It just goes out the other ear, right? You want to have the energy mindfully to engage with light and fun and easy tasks in the evening. Things that make you feel good and in a way that makes you feel good. Deep play, mindful rest, that's the answer. Not television, not just apathetically sitting on the couch, not mindlessly scrolling through your phone. I can say that a thing I'm so happy with is that all these efforts that I've done to read more throughout the last year. I hit 52 books per year or one book per week last year, and I'm really impressed with that, right? All of these activities have led to me almost completely giving up on social media. Now I only use it to communicate with family and to post content and, all of these things have led to me not really using my phone anymore. I don't scroll much. I don't have any social medias I visit. I'm not interested in it. I don't need it. It doesn't give me anything. I use my phone for productivity and I use my mind. That's the most important thing. I use my mind. That's the thing I enjoy using the most. I enjoy to read. That's what I enjoy to do. I enjoy to write. That's what I enjoy to do. I enjoy to draw, to play piano, to engage in DIY, to meditate. That's what I enjoy to do, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing things that I hate, but I think most people actually hate doing what they're doing on the phone. They find it boring to sit through TikTok. They find it boring to look at YouTube shorts. They find it boring to just exchange lazy text messages between friends without really meeting up with their friends and without talking about anything real, right? Most people are looking for deeper, meaningful experiences, even in the evening. But the answer is make sure that you're not too tired, right? Make sure that when the evening starts, you still have some energy left. Don't completely waste up your budget. Reduce stress intensity. Find ways for work-life balance. And find ways to really enjoy every minute of your life, from your work to your evenings to your afternoons. You want to really live life as it is. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I am really looking forward to engaging in this series with all of you and to hearing all your reactions and thoughts and questions. And yeah, I'll see you next month.